I never thought the truth would choose a wedding day. If it had asked me, I would have begged it to wait. To come quietly. To come privately. To come on an ordinary day that could hold the weight of it. But truth doesn't ask for permission. It arrives when it wants to. And that morning, as my daughter stood upstairs getting ready to marry the man she loved, I was downstairs folding napkins and thinking about how fast 18 years had passed. 18 years. That number still feels heavy when I say it out loud. I raised her for 18 years. From the moment she could barely open her eyes, to the moment she stood in front of a mirror in a white dress, adjusting a necklace with shaking hands. I raised her without hesitation. Without doubt. Without knowing. People always told me motherhood would change me. They were right. But no one told me it could also be questioned one day. No one warned me that a single sentence could make me wonder if I had ever been allowed to call myself her mother at all. That morning, I woke up early. Before the alarm. Before the house filled with noise. I sat at the edge of the bed for a long time, listening to the quiet. There was a familiar ache in my chest. Not fear. Not sadness. Just the weight of a big day. I told myself it was normal. Weddings do that to mothers. You raise someone, and one day, you hand them over to a life that no longer belongs to you. That thought alone was enough to make my eyes sting. I went downstairs and started making tea. The kettle whistled. The clock ticked. Everything felt ordinary. Too ordinary. If I had known what was coming, I might have noticed the signs sooner. The way my husband barely spoke. The way he avoided my eyes. The way he kept checking his phone, as if waiting for something he didn't want to arrive. But I was focused on my daughter. On making sure everything was perfect for her. I remember standing in the kitchen, holding a cup of tea that had gone cold, when she came down the stairs. She was wearing her robe. Her hair was half done. Her face looked pale. She smiled when she saw me. "Mom," she said softly, "can you sit with me for a minute?" That word. Mom. I nodded and followed her to the living room. We sat on the couch together, just like we used to when she was small. She leaned her head on my shoulder. "I don't know why," she said, "but today feels heavy." I kissed her hair. "It's just nerves," I told her. That was the first lie I told her that day. Not because I wanted to deceive her. Because I didn't know the truth yet. If I had known, I would have held her tighter. I would have told her everything would change, but some things would stay. I would have told her that love built over 18 years does not disappear in a single moment. But I didn't know. So I smiled. And she smiled back. Downstairs, guests began to arrive. Cars pulled up. Voices filled the air. The house slowly transformed from a home into a celebration. Flowers lined the hallway. Music played softly. Laughter echoed through rooms that had once only heard bedtime stories and arguments about homework. I watched it all like a woman standing at the edge of something she couldn't see yet. My husband walked past me without a word. I called his name. He stopped. "Yes," he said, too quickly. "Are you okay?" I asked. He nodded. Just a lot going on. I believed him. I always did. The ceremony was set for noon. By 11:30, everything was ready. My daughter went upstairs to put on her dress. I stood in the hallway, smoothing out imaginary wrinkles on the tablecloth. That's when the doorbell rang. I assumed it was another guest. I went to open it. And when I did, I felt something inside me shift. A woman stood there. She wasn't dressed for a wedding. No flowers. No smile. Her hands were shaking. Her eyes looked tired in a way that spoke of years, not days. "I need to speak to you," she said. Before I could answer, my husband appeared behind me. The moment he saw her, his face went white. And in that instant, before a single word was spoken, I understood something was about to change forever. For a moment, none of us moved. The music inside the house kept playing. A soft melody meant to calm nerves. But nothing felt calm anymore. My husband stood frozen behind me, his breath shallow, his eyes fixed on the woman at the door as if she might disappear if he didn't blink. She didn't look angry. She looked exhausted. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, her voice barely steady. "I didn't want to do this today. I truly didn't." I felt my fingers tighten around the door frame. "Do what?" I asked. She swallowed. "Tell the truth." That word landed heavily in the space between us. Truth. It sounded harmless on its own. But the way she said it made it feel dangerous. My husband stepped forward. "Not now," he said sharply. "This is not the time." She looked at him then, really looked at him, and something passed between them that I had never seen before. Years. Shared history. Regret. "I've waited 18 years, she said. "I can't wait one more day." 18 years. The number echoed in my head. Coincidence, I told myself. It had to be. I glanced back toward the staircase. I could hear my daughter's voice upstairs, laughing with her friends. That sound anchored me. "Who are you?" I asked. The woman hesitated. She looked past me, into the house. At the flowers. At the decorations. At the life that did not include her. "My name doesn't matter yet," she said. "But I'm here because of your daughter." My heart skipped. "Our daughter," I corrected automatically. She flinched. That was the first crack. My husband closed his eyes. Just for a second. And when he opened them, I knew. Not the details. Not the story. But I knew this woman was not a stranger. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me, keeping my voice low. "This is my daughter's wedding day," I said. "If you have something to say, it can wait." Her eyes filled with tears. "I gave birth to her," she whispered. The world tilted. I laughed once, short and sharp, because my mind refused to accept what my ears had heard. "That's not funny," I said. "I'm not joking." I stared at her. At her face. At the way her hands shook. At the way my husband stood just inside the door, unable to speak. "No," I said quietly. "That's not possible." She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Yellowed at the edges. Old. She didn't hand it to me. She just held it. "A hospital record," she said. "From the day she was born." I didn't take it. I didn't need to. Because behind me, the music stopped. The laughter upstairs faded. And the house, once full of joy, went silent. I turned slowly. My husband was crying. That was when I understood. The truth had not come to visit. It had come to stay. And it had chosen the worst possible day to arrive. I don't remember stepping back inside the house. I only remember the feeling of the floor under my feet and the sound of my own breathing, too loud in my ears. My husband followed me in. The woman stayed near the door, like she didn't know where she was allowed to stand. No one said anything for a moment. The silence felt fragile, like glass. "What is she talking about?" I asked my husband. My voice sounded calm, and that scared me more than if it had been loud. He didn't answer right away. He looked toward the stairs. Toward the place where our daughter was getting dressed. Toward the life we were about to break. "We can't do this here," he said finally. "Please." That word meant nothing now. "You can," I replied. "You just don't want to." The woman shifted her weight. "I never wanted to hurt her," she said. "Or you." I turned to her. "Then why today?" I asked. Her eyes filled with tears. "Because I couldn't live another day pretending I didn't exist," she said. "And because she deserves the truth before she builds a life on a lie." That sentence cut deeper than anything else. A lie. I had lived in one without knowing it. My husband finally spoke. She was born during a time when everything was falling apart, he said slowly. Her mother was young, alone, afraid. He paused. I was there, he continued. I promised to help. My heart pounded. Help how? I asked. He looked at me then. Really looked at me. I brought her home, he said. And I let you believe she was abandoned. The room spun. I grabbed the back of a chair to steady myself. You watched me raise her, I said. You watched me love her, protect her, worry about her every single day. I know, he whispered. And I'm sorry. Sorry. A word too small for 18 years of silence. Footsteps came down the stairs. Light ones. Careful. Our daughter stood there, half-dressed, her hair pinned up, confusion written across her face. Why did the music stop? She asked. No one answered. She looked from me to her father, then to the woman near the door. Mom, she said. I turned toward her. I wanted to protect her. I wanted to lie. I wanted to stop time. Instead, I opened my arms. She walked into them immediately. I don't understand, she said into my shoulder. I held her tightly. Neither did I. The woman spoke, her voice shaking. I'm so sorry, she said. I'm your biological mother. The word biological felt cold, foreign. My daughter pulled back slightly and looked at her. No, she said. That's not possible. I felt her body tense, her breath quicken. My husband stepped forward. It's true, he said. That was the moment the world broke cleanly in half. My daughter's eyes filled with tears. She looked at me, then at him, then back at me again. So, what does that make her? She asked. I knelt in front of her and held her hands. It makes her a woman who gave birth to you, I said gently. And it makes me the woman who raised you. She stared at me, searching my face. And you didn't know? She asked. I shook my head. Never, I said. She leaned into me again, shaking now. I held her as the truth settled over all of us like heavy rain. The wedding guests waited outside. The flowers stayed fresh. The day kept moving forward. But our lives had stopped. And nothing would ever fit together the same way again. Someone suggested taking a break. Another voice said maybe we should postpone. The words floated around the room, touching nothing. My daughter didn't move from my arms. Her body was stiff, like she was holding herself together by force alone. I need air, she said quietly. I nodded and guided her toward the back door. We stepped outside into the garden. The sun was bright. Too bright. Birds were still singing, unaware that anything had changed. She sat down on the steps and put her head in her hands. I feel stupid, she said. Like my whole life was fake. I sat beside her. It wasn't fake, I said. Nothing you lived was fake. She shook her head. Everyone knew but me. I swallowed. Not everyone, I said. I didn't. She looked up at me then, really looked. Her eyes searched my face the way they had when she was a child, trying to decide whether to trust a difficult answer. You swear? She asked. I swear, I said. She exhaled, shaky and uneven. That small breath felt like something loosening. Inside the house, I could hear voices rising and falling. The truth was spreading. It always does. I don't want to get married today, she said. There was no drama in her voice. Just certainty. I understand, I replied. She leaned against me. I don't want to see anyone right now, she added. Except you. That sentence anchored me. I'm here, I said. I'm not going anywhere. Behind us, the door opened. My husband stood there, his face worn down by regret. Everyone's leaving, he said softly. We told them there was a family emergency. My daughter didn't look at him. "Go inside," she said. "Please." He hesitated. Then he went back in. The other woman stayed near the doorway, unsure whether to approach. My daughter noticed her. "I can't talk to you today," she said calmly. "I don't hate you. I just can't." The woman nodded, tears slipping down her face. "I understand," she whispered. And then she left. That was how the wedding ended. Not with music. Not with celebration. With honesty that arrived too suddenly to be gentle. That night, my daughter slept in my bed. Like she used to when she had nightmares. I lay awake beside her, staring at the ceiling. 18 years replayed in my mind. First steps. School plays. Fevered nights. Every moment had been real. No one could take that from me. But something else had been stolen. My right to choose. My right to know. And that loss sat heavy in my chest. In the quiet of that night, I understood something painful. The truth had not only arrived for my daughter. It had arrived for me too. And it was asking me what kind of mother I would be now. The morning after felt unreal. Like waking up in a house that looked familiar but no longer belonged to the same life. My daughter slept late. I didn't wake her. I moved quietly through the kitchen, making tea I barely touched, listening to the clock tick as if time itself was unsure how to move forward. When she finally came downstairs, her eyes were swollen, but her back was straight. She sat across from me at the table. "Did you ever suspect?" she asked. I didn't hesitate. "Never," I said. "Not once." She nodded slowly. "That scares me," she admitted. How easy it was for the truth to hide. I understood what she meant. It scared me too. We talked in pieces that morning. Not long conversations. Small questions. Careful answers. Each one placed gently, like stepping stones across something deep. "What happens now?" she asked. "We don't have to decide anything today," I replied. "We just have to get through today." That seemed to calm her. The rest could wait. My husband tried to speak to me later that afternoon. I asked him to wait. Not because I wanted to punish him. Because I needed to protect what little steadiness I had left. That evening, my daughter said something I wasn't prepared for. "I don't want to leave," she said. "I don't feel ready to go back to my apartment." "You can stay as long as you need," I told her. She looked relieved. That relief told me how shaken she truly was. Over the next few days, questions surfaced in unexpected moments. While folding laundry. While washing dishes. While walking past old photographs on the wall. Did she want me? Why didn't anyone tell you? Was I ever supposed to find out? Some questions had answers. Some didn't. I didn't invent comfort where none existed. "I don't know" became a sentence I used often. And strangely, honesty helped more than reassurance ever could. The other woman sent a letter. Handwritten. Careful. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She didn't make excuses. She explained. Fear. Youth. Pressure. Regret that never left. My daughter read it quietly. Then folded it and put it away. "I need time," she said. Time was the only thing that made sense. One evening, as we sat together watching something neither of us was really following, she turned to me. "Are you angry with me?" she asked suddenly. My heart broke a little. "Never," I said. "None of this is your fault." She nodded, but I could tell she needed more. "And you?" she asked. "Are you angry with him?" I thought about that. "I'm hurt," I said honestly. "And I'm angry about the lie." She leaned into my shoulder. "I don't want to lose our family," she whispered. I wrapped my arm around her. "We're not losing it," I said. "It's changing." Change is frightening when it arrives uninvited. But it doesn't always mean destruction. Sometimes it means truth taking its place at the table. I didn't know what forgiveness would look like yet. I didn't know what our family would become. But I knew one thing with certainty. Motherhood did not disappear because the truth had arrived. If anything, it had become more deliberate, more conscious, more chosen. And I was still choosing her. Every single day. The days that followed did not rush forward. They moved slowly, carefully, as if the house itself was learning how to hold a new kind of truth. My daughter stayed with me, not because she didn't have anywhere else to go, but because this was the place where her life had been built, where her childhood lived in the walls, where she didn't have to explain who she was. Some mornings, she woke up quiet. Other mornings, she asked questions as if they had been waiting all night. "Did you ever feel different with me?" she asked once, while we were making breakfast. I looked at her. "Different from what?" I replied. "From how you imagined motherhood would be," she said. I thought for a moment. "I imagined motherhood would be hard," I said. "And it was. But never because of you." She nodded, absorbing that. "I never felt like you didn't belong to me," I added. "Not even for a second." That mattered to her. I could see it. My husband and I spoke eventually. Not in anger. Not in shouting. In exhaustion. In honesty that came too late, but came all the same. "I convinced myself I was protecting everyone," he said. "You were protecting yourself," I replied. "And you took away my right to decide what I could live with." He didn't argue. There was nothing left to defend. We talked about what the lie had cost. Trust. Time. The foundation we thought was solid. Some things can be repaired. Some things must be rebuilt differently. We didn't decide our future right away. That uncertainty stayed with us. And I learned to sit with it. The other woman did not come around again. She respected the space my daughter asked for. That restraint mattered more than any apology could have. One afternoon, my daughter stood in front of an old photo on the wall. She was 4 years old in it, wearing a dress I had sewn myself. She pointed to it. "That was real, wasn't it?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "Every bit of it." She smiled faintly. "That's what I keep coming back to," she said. "No matter what I learn, I can't undo who I became." And she was right. The truth had added layers to her story, but it had not erased its beginning. One night, she sat beside me on the couch and said something I hadn't expected. "I don't feel like I need to choose," she said. "I can know where I came from without losing where I belong." I felt tears rise, but I didn't stop them. "That's wisdom," I told her. And it didn't come easily. She leaned her head on my shoulder. In that moment, I understood something quietly but completely. The truth had changed many things. But it had not changed this. I was her mother. Not by accident. Not by mistake. By 18 years of staying. And staying, I was learning, is the most powerful form of love there is. As the shock softened, something else took its place. Clarity. Not the kind that answers every question. The kind that tells you where to stand. My daughter began returning to her routines. Work. Errands. Small plans that reminded her she still had a life beyond what had happened. I watched her closely. Not because I doubted her strength. Because I respected it. She didn't rush to redefine herself. She let herself exist as she was. A woman carrying new information, not yet sure where to put it. One evening, while we were cleaning up after dinner, she said, "I think I'm starting to understand something." I looked at her. "I can't change how I came into the world," she continued. "But I can choose what I do with that knowledge." I nodded. "That's all any of us can do," I said. She dried her hands and leaned against the counter. "I don't feel broken," she said. "I feel rearranged." That word stayed with me. Rearranged. It didn't mean destroyed. It meant adjusted. Her relationship with her father remained complicated. She loved him. She was angry. Both feelings existed together, uncomfortable but real. He accepted that. For the first time in years, he stopped trying to manage the story. He listened. That was new. The other woman reached out again, carefully. A short message. No pressure. No expectations. "I'm here when you're ready." My daughter read it and placed her phone face down. "I appreciate that she's not pushing," she said. "She understands something now," I replied. "What?" she asked. "That love given late has to move slowly." My daughter smiled faintly. "I think that's true." Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. The house began to feel lighter. Not because everything was resolved, but because nothing was hidden anymore. I realized how much energy secrecy consumes, how much weight it adds to ordinary days. That weight was gone now. One afternoon, my daughter asked me something quietly. "Do you regret raising me?" The question landed gently, but it carried years inside it. "No," I said immediately. "Never." "Not even now?" she asked. "Especially now," I replied. "Because now I see exactly what it meant." She reached for my hand. "I'm glad it was you," she said. That sentence settled everything that needed settling. Not forever, but enough. I learned then that motherhood is not something that can be undone by information. It is lived into being, day after day, choice after choice. And even when the truth comes late, it does not erase what was built with love. It reveals it. We didn't know yet what the future would look like, but we knew where we stood. And that was enough to keep moving forward. As time moved on, I noticed something unexpected. The truth stopped being the first thing we talked about. It was still there. It hadn't disappeared, but it no longer filled every corner of the room. My daughter began to talk about her postponed wedding again. Not with excitement yet. With caution. "I don't know when I'll be ready," she said one afternoon. "And I don't want anyone pushing me." "No one will," I replied. "This is yours to return to when you choose." That control mattered to her. So much of what had happened had taken control away. Choice, I learned, is one of the first things truth must give back. She started seeing friends again. Not to explain. Not to answer questions. Just to feel normal for an hour or two. When she came home, she would sit at the kitchen table and tell me about ordinary things. Work gossip. Traffic. A movie she didn't like. Those conversations felt like a gift. They meant life was reasserting itself. My husband remained careful around both of us. He didn't demand closeness. He didn't avoid responsibility. He stayed present, even when it was uncomfortable. That was new too. One evening, he said something quietly. "I know I don't get to decide how you see me anymore." He looked at our daughter when he said it. She nodded. "That's true," she replied. "But I also don't want to live angry forever." They were learning how to speak again. Not as before. As something altered, but still possible. The other woman remained on the edges. Exactly where my daughter asked her to be. Sometimes a message. Sometimes silence. Both were respected. I watched all of this with a strange mix of pain and gratitude. Pain for the years shaped by a lie. Gratitude that the lie hadn't destroyed what mattered most. One night, after my daughter had gone to bed, I sat alone in the living room. I looked at the photos on the wall. Birthdays. Holidays. Graduations. I didn't question them anymore. They were real. They belonged to us. I realized then that I had crossed a quiet threshold. I was no longer afraid of being replaced. Because what I had built wasn't a role. It was a relationship. And relationships are not transferable. They are grown, earned, lived. The truth had arrived and tested that belief. And it had held. That knowledge gave me a calm I hadn't expected. I stopped replaying the wedding day in my mind. When I thought of it, I didn't feel panic anymore. I felt understanding. It had been a rupture, but not an ending. As weeks passed, my daughter said something that told me she was finding her footing again. "I don't feel like I'm standing on broken ground," she said. "It feels uneven, but it's still solid." I smiled. "That's life," I replied. "Uneven, but solid." She leaned her head on my shoulder. And in that moment, I knew. We weren't moving backward. We were moving through. And sometimes, moving through is the bravest thing a family can do. There was a day, months later, when I realized I hadn't cried about it in a while. Not because it no longer mattered, but because it no longer hurt in the same sharp way. Pain had changed shape. It had softened around the edges. My daughter noticed the change too. "I don't feel like I'm carrying it all the time anymore," she said one evening. "It's there. I know it is. But it's not pressing on my chest." I understood exactly what she meant. Truth doesn't disappear. It settles. She began to talk about the future again. Not just the wedding. Her work. Where she wanted to live. What kind of life she wanted to build. Those conversations felt hopeful without being forced. They didn't rush past what had happened. They simply made room beside it. One afternoon, she asked me something quietly while we were walking together. "Do you ever wish you had known earlier?" I thought about that for a long time. "Yes," I said finally. "And no." She looked at me, curious. "Yes, because I deserved the truth," I continued. "And no, because knowing earlier wouldn't have changed how I loved you." She smiled softly. "That's what I keep coming back to," she said. "Nothing about how you treated me makes sense if love was conditional." It wasn't. It never had been. My husband and I continued our careful conversations. We didn't pretend things were fine. We also didn't let the past dominate every exchange. We spoke about accountability, about what trust would need to look like now. Some days were harder than others. But honesty, even when uncomfortable, felt cleaner than silence ever had. The other woman remained present in a way that respected boundaries. She didn't try to rewrite history. She didn't ask for a role she hadn't earned. She stayed patient. That patience mattered. My daughter noticed it too. "I think she understands she can't rush this," she said. "She does," I replied. "And that makes all the difference." One evening, my daughter said something that stayed with me. "I don't feel like I was taken from someone anymore," she said. "I feel like I was raised where I was meant to be." That sentence settled something deep inside me. The fear I hadn't fully named finally let go. I realized then that the truth had not reduced my place in her life. It had clarified it. I wasn't her mother by default. I was her mother by presence. By consistency. By 18 years of choosing her, even when I didn't know the full story. The truth couldn't touch that. It couldn't rewrite it. It could only reveal how strong it already was. As time passed, the wedding plans slowly returned. Not with pressure. With intention. She wanted to do it right this time. On her own terms. "I want it to feel honest," she said. "Not perfect." I smiled. "Honest lasts longer," I told her. And I meant it. This story, I realized, was no longer about what had been hidden. It was about what had endured. What truth could not take away. And what remained, steady and unshaken, after everything else moved. Normal did not arrive suddenly. It came in small pieces. In mornings where coffee tasted like coffee again. In evenings where silence felt restful instead of heavy. In laughter that surprised us when it appeared. My daughter slowly reclaimed her sense of ease. She stopped apologizing for needing time. Stopped explaining herself to people who didn't matter. She learned that healing doesn't look the same from the outside as it feels on the inside. Some days, she was light. Some days, quiet. Both were allowed. One afternoon, while we were grocery shopping together, she stopped in the middle of an aisle and laughed. I looked at her, startled. I just realized something, she said. What? I asked. I forgot about it for a few minutes, she replied. About everything. That forgetfulness wasn't denial. It was progress. It meant her life was no longer orbiting the truth. It was simply carrying it. My husband continued to show up in ways he hadn't before. Not with grand gestures. With consistency. He listened more than he spoke. He accepted boundaries without resentment. He stopped trying to control outcomes. That change didn't erase the past, but it made the present more livable. One evening, my daughter spoke to him openly for the first time in a while. I'm not ready to forgive everything, she said. But I'm willing to keep talking. He nodded. That's more than I deserve, he replied. It wasn't self-pity. It was accountability. I watched that exchange quietly. I didn't intervene. This was their relationship to rebuild, in whatever shape it could take. The other woman remained steady and patient. When she was included, she was grateful. When she wasn't, she understood. She never tried to compete with the years I had lived. She didn't need to. One evening, my daughter said something that surprised me. I don't feel torn anymore, she said. I feel like I have more than one truth, and that's okay. That was the moment I knew she would be all right. Not because everything was resolved, but because she had learned how to live with complexity without letting it define her. Life continued. Seasons changed. The house felt like a home again. I stopped measuring time by before and after. I started measuring it by now. By moments that felt steady. By days that didn't ask me to be strong. I realized then that the truth had done its work. It had shaken us. It had tested us. And it had left behind something quieter, but stronger. Understanding. I raised another woman's child for 18 years. The truth came out on her wedding day. And after everything that moved, shifted, and broke open, what stayed was love. Not the fragile kind. The kind that learns, adapts, and remains. And that is where this story belongs. Not in the moment of shock, but in the life that continued afterward. Quietly, honestly, forward. There came a point when I realized I no longer introduced the story to myself as a tragedy. For a long time, I had done that quietly, without noticing. I would think, this is the day everything fell apart. But one afternoon, sitting alone in the living room with the windows open, I caught myself thinking something different. This is the day everything became honest. That shift mattered. It didn't change what happened, but it changed how it lived inside me. My daughter started coming over less often, not because she was pulling away, but because she was building her own rhythm again. She would call before coming. Is now a good time? She'd ask. I always said yes. Not because I needed her to come, but because I wanted her to know she was welcome, always. Sometimes she came just to sit. Sometimes she came with questions. Sometimes she came with nothing at all. Those visits felt easy. Natural. Not like recovery. Like life. One evening, as we washed dishes together, she said something that stayed with me. I don't think I need the truth to make sense anymore, she said. I just need it to exist. I nodded. That's when it stops hurting, I replied. She smiled softly. I think I'm there, she said. And I believed her. The wedding plans returned slowly. Not with excitement this time. With intention. She chose a smaller venue. Fewer people. more space. She wanted a day that felt calm. A day that didn't ask her to perform happiness. I want to feel present, she said. That's all. I helped her choose flowers. Simple ones. Nothing dramatic. As we stood in the shop together, she turned to me. Do you ever think about what would have happened if you'd known from the start? She asked. I thought about it. Sometimes, I said. But then I remember that knowing wouldn't have changed how I loved you. She reached for my hand. I think that's why this still feels safe, she said. Safe. That word meant everything. The other woman attended the wedding planning only when invited. She respected boundaries with a care that felt intentional. She didn't try to reclaim time. She didn't compete with memory. She stayed where she was allowed. And that made all the difference. One day, my daughter said something quietly. I don't feel like I was given away anymore, she said. I feel like I was carried by different people at different times. That sentence felt like closure without forcing it. I realized then that the fear I had carried since the first wedding day was gone. Not numbed. Gone. I was no longer afraid of losing my place. Because my place had never been borrowed. It had been built. 18 years of mornings and nights. Of worry and pride. Of choosing, again and again, to stay. No truth could undo that. As the new wedding date approached, I felt something unexpected. Peace. Not because everything was perfect, but because everything was real. This story didn't end when the truth came out. It began again. Quieter. Stronger. More honest. And as I stood in the kitchen that evening, listening to the familiar sounds of a home that had learned how to hold complexity, I understood something with absolute clarity. Love that is lived daily does not disappear when the truth arrives. It proves itself. And what proved itself in my life was something I will never question again. I was her mother. Not by biology. By presence. By choice. By staying when it would have been easier to break. And that kind of love, I've learned, is the kind that lasts. As the weeks moved toward the new wedding date, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Ease. Not excitement. Not relief. Ease. The kind that comes when nothing is being hidden anymore. My daughter moved through her days with a steadiness that told me she had found her footing again. She wasn't rushing to define anything. She wasn't explaining herself. She was simply living. That felt like a victory no one could see from the outside. One afternoon, she came over and helped me sort through old boxes in the closet. Photos. School papers. Little drawings I had saved without knowing why. She picked up a crumpled piece of paper with her handwriting from years ago. I forgot about this, she said, smiling. It was a note she had written when she was 9. Thank you for always being there, Mom. She looked at me, eyes soft. That wasn't a lie, was it? She asked. No, I said. That was the truest thing you ever wrote. She nodded and placed it back in the box carefully. Those moments mattered more than any conversation about biology ever could. They reminded us both that love leaves evidence. Not in documents. In memory. In how someone shows up when no one is watching. My husband and I continued to move carefully. We were not pretending things were fixed. But we were no longer frozen. He accepted that trust would take time. Possibly more time than we had already lived through. He didn't rush it. That patience was the only thing that made conversation possible at all. One evening, he said something I had waited a long time to hear. I didn't just lie to you, he said. I took something from you. He didn't excuse it. He didn't soften it. He named it. And naming it mattered. I don't know what that means for us yet, I replied. But I appreciate that you finally see it. That was as far as we needed to go that night. The other woman remained present in my daughter's life in a quiet way. Occasional messages. Short visits. Nothing that tried to replace anything. I noticed how carefully she spoke about me, always with respect, always acknowledging the years I had lived. That didn't erase the past, but it allowed the present to breathe. As the wedding day approached again, I felt calm. Not because I was confident nothing could go wrong, because I knew that whatever happened, the truth would not undo us again. It had already done its work. The morning of the second wedding, my daughter came to me before anyone else arrived. She was already dressed. Simple. Elegant. She looked like herself. Not like a version she was trying to be. She hugged me tightly. "Thank you for never making me choose," she whispered. I held her. "There was never a choice to make," I replied. That was the truth. When the ceremony finally happened, it was quiet. Intentional. Full of people who knew the whole story and stayed anyway. I sat in the front row again. But this time, my heart didn't race. It rested. When my daughter walked down the aisle, she looked at me and smiled. Not for reassurance. For recognition. And I smiled back. Because everything had found its place. The truth. The past. The love. Nothing had been erased. Only rearranged. And in that rearrangement, what mattered most had stayed exactly where it belonged. With us. After the wedding, life did what it always does. It continued. Not dramatically. Not perfectly. But steadily. The guests went home. The flowers wilted. The dresses were packed away. And what remained was the ordinary rhythm of days. My daughter settled into married life with a quiet confidence. She called me the morning after the wedding. "I'm tired," she said, laughing softly. "But I'm happy." That was all I needed to hear. We didn't talk about the past much anymore. Not because it was forbidden. Because it no longer needed to lead every conversation. When it came up, it did so gently. Without panic. Without sharp edges. I noticed how my own thoughts had changed. I no longer replayed the moment the truth came out, wondering what I could have done differently. I no longer asked myself if I had missed signs. Those questions had lost their power. They belonged to a time when the story was unfinished. Now, the story had shape. Not a neat shape, but a real one. My relationship with my husband remained complicated. Some days felt hopeful. Some days felt distant. But there were no more lies between us. Whatever happened next would happen in the light. That mattered. The other woman stayed in my daughter's life in a way that felt appropriate. Careful. Respectful. She didn't ask for holidays. She didn't demand closeness. She accepted what was offered. That acceptance allowed everyone to breathe. One afternoon, my daughter said something that surprised me. "I don't feel like I have two mothers," she said. "I feel like I have a mother, and a truth about where I came from." I understood exactly what she meant. Truth does not always ask for a title. Sometimes, it simply asks to be acknowledged. I realized then that the fear I had once carried that I would be replaced, diminished, erased, had been built on a misunderstanding. Love is not a position someone can take from you. It is a history. And history cannot be undone by information. As seasons changed, I found myself grateful in ways I hadn't expected. Grateful that the truth had come out before resentment turned everything bitter. Grateful that my daughter had been strong enough to face it. Grateful that I had been able to stay. Staying had been my instinct from the beginning. And staying had proven to be the right choice. One quiet evening, as I sat alone in the living room, I thought back to the first wedding day. To the shock. To the fear. To the moment I wondered if I would lose my daughter forever. I smiled softly to myself. I hadn't lost her. I had learned something about us. Something that would last longer than any secret. I had raised another woman's child for 18 years. And when the truth came out, it didn't take her from me. It showed me that what we had built was strong enough to hold truth without breaking. Life didn't end that day. It clarified. And clarity, I've learned, is one of the greatest gifts a story can give you. This is not a story about betrayal alone. It is a story about endurance. About the kind of love that stays when everything else shifts. About choosing presence, again and again, even when the ground feels uncertain. And as I live my life now, in the quiet spaces after everything has settled, I carry that lesson with me. Love that is lived does not disappear. It proves itself. That is how this story ends. Not with shock. Not with loss. But with a life that continued. Honestly. Steadily. And whole. As time went on, the story stopped feeling heavy in my hands. It became something I could carry without effort. I realized then that the fear I had once carried that I would be replaced, diminished, erased, had been built on a misunderstanding. Love is not a position someone can take from you. It is a history. And history cannot be undone by information. As seasons changed, I found myself grateful in ways I hadn't expected. Grateful that the truth had come out before resentment turned everything bitter. Grateful that my daughter had been strong enough to face it. Grateful that I had been able to stay. Staying had been my instinct from the beginning. And staying had proven to be the right choice. One quiet evening, as I sat alone in the living room, I thought back to the first wedding day. To the shock. To the fear. To the moment I wondered if I would lose my daughter forever. I smiled softly to myself. I hadn't lost her. I had learned something about us. Something that would last longer than any secret. I had raised another woman's child for 18 years. And when the truth came out, it didn't take her from me. It showed me that what we had built was strong enough to hold truth without breaking. Life didn't end that day. It clarified. And clarity, I've learned, is one of the greatest gifts a story can give you. This is not a story about betrayal alone. It is a story about endurance. About the kind of love that stays when everything else shifts. About choosing presence, again and again, even when the ground feels uncertain. And as I live my life now, in the quiet spaces after everything has settled, I carry that lesson with me. Love that is lived does not disappear. It proves itself. That is how this story ends. Not with shock. Not with loss. But with a life that continued. Honestly. Steadily. And whole. As time went on, the story stopped feeling heavy in my hands. It became something I could carry without effort. Not because it mattered less. But because it had finally found its place. I no longer introduced it as something painful when I thought about it. I introduced it as something true. And truth, when it is fully faced, becomes quiet. My daughter lives her life now without looking over her shoulder. She laughs easily. She plans things without hesitation. She calls me when she needs grounding, not answers. That tells me everything. I don't feel the need to explain my role to anyone. I lived it. 18 years of showing up does not need defending. It speaks for itself. The truth came out on her wedding day. It was sudden. It was painful. It was unavoidable. But it did not undo what mattered. It revealed it. And what it revealed was stronger than any secret. Love that is chosen daily does not disappear when the truth arrives. It settles. It stays. And that is where this story rests. Not in the moment everything broke open, but in the life that continued afterward. Quiet. Honest. Unshakable.